Hello and welcome to Guitarist Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.guitarist.com. My name is Jason JROCK Houston. My great pleasure to be speaking with Bret Michaels' band guitarist Pete Evick. And today, Pete, we're going to be talking to you about your latest single, which is a great cover of 99 Red Balloons. So why don't we start the interview off, if you don't mind, telling us a little bit about your decision to cover that song?
You got it. And hello, by the way, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, my great pleasure, like I said.
To tell the story relatively quick, when I was a child, I was incredibly affected by the nuclear threat. I was born in 1972. I was raised in the early 70s, or the late 70s and the early 80s, basically. And the Cold War and the threat of Russia being the big bad enemy was, part of my life. And we were doing the drills where you hid under the desks in school and stuff like that. And I was terrified of it. It affected me in a tremendous way. And about the time I was in sixth grade, 1983-84, I was a full-on Quiet Riot, Van Halen, Twisted Sister, Kiss fan.
Who wasn't, my friend, right?
Right. But as much as I love everything now, I'm a giant Duran Duran fan now, to be honest with you. But back then, you weren't going to catch me listening to synth pop or Euro pop or anything.
Yeah.
But this particular song spoke to me back then because it was an anti-war protest song, and it was about the fear of nuclear war, and so it spoke to me. And as a child, I used it very much as therapy when I was afraid. I felt like Nina was talking about stuff that she understood me. I felt like she was talking directly to me about it. So all the years go by. I'm almost 50 years old now, and this war breaks out in the Ukraine, and I wake up in the morning and I go through my news channels, and every single news channel, from the BBC to Fox to CNN to CNBC to all of them, the same crawl is going across the bottom where it says just the word nuclear and Russia, those two words together in a news crawl. I was like, are you kidding me? Here we are.
Yeah.
Again, is history, are we going back in history? I know the whole world wishes it was the 80s again and thinks it's the greatest time in the world, but it's not that part of it, right?
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Pete, about a lot of what you said is I'm about a year older than you. I was born in 1971, so I kind of can relate to a lot of what you're saying. I mean, and what's kind of interesting, I remember, in the 80s growing up, and I mean, even to current day, I mean, I remember, it's amazing, especially as a child, and you hear this stuff on the news or the TV, the impact it can have you on, like, stuff like that can have on you in the sense of, a lot of times, the stuff you hear on TV is rhetoric or whatever. I mean, they do scare the hell out of people. And even though, Russia's like on the other side of the world, as a little kid, you hear this stuff. And like you said, Russia was a boogeyman. But at the same time, I was kind of interested. I remember in the 80s when Reagan was elected president, his big thing was, making peace with Russia and trying to be friends. And Mr. Gorbachev, break down that wall.
Tear your walls down, right? I remember it.
And so at the same time when, Russia was supposed to be the boogeyman, I kind of dug that, the president of the time was trying to at least broker like peace and let's try to get along. And it's amazing, all these years later, like you said, almost 50 years later. I mean, the one thing that's kind of interesting about the Ukraine war is that's the one thing everybody seems to be in unison about. When you hear any news report, if it's on CNN or Fox News, they all seem to be in favor of Ukraine, and why wouldn't you be? But you know what I mean? That's the one thing that everybody is kind of in agreement on.
Right, absolutely. And I agree with you with Reagan, and I remember all of that very, very clearly. But I was just, moving forward today, just shocked to see the word nuclear in Russia on my news crawls. It blew my mind, and it sent me back to 13-year-old me again. And because of that, I basically retreated to that song again and used it as therapy. And I would sit in my studio and I started kind of humming it and singing it and humming it and singing it. And then I hit record, and then I did a little bit of it here and there, and I kind of pieced it together over a couple days. And by the time I was done with it, I thought I had a pretty cool piece of art with it. And then I sent it to a couple of my buddies that are super critical and super honest.
Yeah.
And they kind of unanimously came back to me that they thought it was super cool. So I took that and I went and I shot a video for it. And in the video, I gave a nod to the original video by walking through a field like she did.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when the music kicked in, I put just all the destruction that was happening at the time in the background against us on a green screen.
Yeah.
Just to raise awareness to anyone that wasn't watching the news. You know, there's an entire movement of people that don't even turn the news on anymore because over COVID it just depressed them. and so I made the video to just kind of raise awareness to what was happening in the Ukraine and hopefully draw attention to anyone that might want to give to any. I didn't tie the song to any particular charity.
Yeah.
It's tied to any charity. You can find your own way. There's a million ways to help the Ukraine. You know, when it all first went down, I was going nuts trying to actually figure out if I could just go over there.
Wow.
If they were, you know, I don't know what I would do to help, but in my brain, you know, to me, music is a gift, and music gets people through bad times and all of this stuff. And you kept hearing about these people hiding in the subways, and I literally just thought that I was going to fly to Poland and with a guitar on my back and walk across the border and find that subway and go down and sing to those people. That's what I was going to do. And it turned out not to be as easy or possible as I thought it would.
Yeah, you know, you know, oh man, just so much to respond to what you said. I mean, what I dig about the fact too. I mean, let's talk about your video for a minute. First thing that impressed me, I dug your cover of a song. First, great cover. Great, your singing and everything is just spot on. But the video, like you said, that is what was really spot on. I mean, you cannot help but notice, like all the news clipping in the video. You know, like you said, you know, you're standing kind of in front of a screen and you see all this footage of the war going on, and it's kind of cool you did that because it's in real time, and that's the one thing, you know, with all today's technology, the world was not this way like even 5-10 years ago. I mean, if the war would have taken place then, I mean, this is, I think, the first war where people are actually able to see it on the screen because there's cameras everywhere, all around the world, no matter where you go. I mean, this stuff is on, like you said, 24 hours a day. You can't help but see it. This is, I think, the first war maybe in our lifetime where you're actually seeing it as it is going on.
Right, yeah. We're watching it in real time. It's funny, I mentioned Duran Duran earlier.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm a rock guy, and I know that you're a rock guy, but in the 90s, Duran Duran had an album that had a song on it called Ordinary World.
I remember that, yeah.
There was also a song on that record called Too Much Information.
Yeah.
And he talks about the lyrics. At first it talks about MTV ruining their career, but eventually they get to a verse where he's talking about the news teams sponsoring the war and watching the war in real time. He kind of predicted what the future was going to be like.
It's amazing, and you know, I have no problem, you know, like with you liking Duran Duran and supposed to be a rock guy. You know what? To me, everybody first of all has a right to like what they want, and to me, good music is good music. Give an example. I typically do listen to hard rock and metal, but you know what? I have an appreciation too for everything from Tom Petty to the Eagles. You know why? Those guys wrote great songs, classic songs, still be played on the radio almost 40, 50 years later. You know.
Actually, me and Bret were talking about it today. A good song's a good song.
Yeah.
And you can take any song that, if you can strip it down to the acoustic guitar and a vocal, and you feel like it's a good song, then you could produce it or shift it to be any genre of music if you needed to.
Oh, sure. I mean, and as a Kiss fan, I mean, just look what they did on that Kiss Unplugged. I mean, they played songs they hadn't played in years and did it acoustically, and it just like made many of those songs like a totally new song. You know, like for example, "Got to Choose." That's a song appeared on Hotter Than Hell back in 1974. They haven't played that in years, and they broke that song. "Coming Home," that's another one. and just reinvented the.
Just for the record, I'm probably as big a Kiss fan as you, so you didn't need to tell me what record that was on.
Yeah. But yeah, I got love for those guys. I mean, even 50 years later, and people don't like respect Gene and Paul for what they do, but man, they wrote. Look at all those hit songs they wrote. They're still doing it 50 years later. So I'm sorry, they did something right.
My oldest son turned 20 on March 4th of this year, and all he wanted to do was go see Ace Frehley. So we drove from Virginia to Pennsylvania on his 20th birthday for him to check Ace out.
How cool is that? Wow.
Yeah, and Ace comes out and opens up with "Rip It Out" off of his solo record, which actually I performed that song in my 4th grade talent show.
How cool is that, Pete? Wow. And see, and so that's cool that, like a lot of us, you grew up on those songs, and now you become a musician and you're doing your own thing, and as great as it is that you're playing with, been playing with Bret Michaels all these years, I think it's cool that you're finally kind of branching out and doing your thing on the side. So now that you've done this video, are you working towards maybe like a full-length solo album or anything like that? Or have you given any thought to that?
Well, so I've been in Bret's band 19 years.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I did release 3 records with Evick back then. But I hadn't written a lot of music for my band Evick because me and Bret have been writing music all these years together.
Yeah.
However, over COVID, I was able to kind of really get back to who I was and who I used to be and start writing music for myself and that sound that was mine back then. And I don't know that it's going to be a full-length record, but I definitely have a handful of songs in my head.
That's good to hear.
But I think I just release each one as a single as they come.
Yeah.
And just keep going like that.
It's cool because you, again, I'm just judging the current single, but to me, and I like this type of music, you definitely got a sound, and while I know your main gig is the Bret Michaels thing, I think it's cool to show people what you can kind of also do on your own.
Sure, I hope people enjoy it. I don't know if Dave told you but other than 99 Red Balloons, I did release a second song 2 weeks ago that is a brand new original piece of music called My Best Days, and it's the first Evick song of my own that I've released in over a decade. We
will definitely check that out, and I'll post both of the videos when we post the interview that we're doing here. And I was curious, so as far as, you hooking up with Bret, almost 20 years ago, how did you guys make that initial connection? How did you first, come to join his band?
So I was a giant Poison fan.
Of course.
Me and my drummer Chuck Fansfall, me and him have been together for 36 years playing music, and I have videos of us playing Poison songs in our high school talent shows.
Wow.
That's how far back it goes.
Yeah.
And in '92, when CeCe left Poison, I was 19, I think, but I had contact with their management company, and I sent in audition tapes and went through the first round of selection, so to speak, and interview. But they picked Richie Kotzen, and I was too young anyway at that point. But then Bret went out and did a solo tour, and I kept that number, and I contacted them and put myself on as the opening act for the first year of his solo dates.
Yeah.
And up and down the East Coast, not the whole tour, and then the second year he had a whole different band, and I made the calls again, and I got the dates again, and we toured, and by then I got to be friends with I got to know him, but I got to be friends with his whole camp, and his guitar player at the time had already
left. Yeah.
Realized he wasn't coming back the next year, and to be honest with you, both years that Bret did solo tours, he used a different band, so the opportunity came for me to play, and it was only supposed to be me, but a few things happened along the way, and I was able to bring my whole band as his band.
Oh, cool! Wow.
And I kind of thought that we'd get 1 year. The way I've seen it, Bret was changing bands every year and just hiring different guys. But here we are 19 years later.
And Bret, his fan base is huge because besides the obvious Poison fans, that you got built in there, he's got his solo fans, he's got his Rock of Love fans. I mean, he's done reality TV.
Fans.
Yeah. So a lot of people have been following him for years. And now when you guys go and do a Bret Michaels show, I was curious, how much of his set list is Poison songs versus his solo songs?
It varies from time to time. Over the last couple of years, it's been 90% Poison songs.
Of course, yeah, that's what people know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's Bret's a firm believer in playing the hits. He's not one to pull out an obscure track. He believes that the fans want to hear the hit songs, and so we hammer him hard with all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time I seen Poison might have been on their Flesh and Blood tour. I think Warrant was the opening band at the time, but I tell you, every time I've ever seen Poison, it's just been such a great show. I mean, they were obviously, and they've talked over years, obviously another band influenced hugely by Kiss. But very much like Kiss, they put on a great rock show. And every time I've seen them, they play the songs I love. I leave, without any complaints. I'm like, man, I got what I paid for. I got the songs I want to hear. I got the shows. And then they put on one hell of a rock show.
And Poison still does it just like that. They're better now than ever. And the solo band's a little bit different than Poison, as Bret is a giant Aerosmith, Skinner, Zeppelin, Kiss fan. Yeah. That's where, and Van Halen, that's where his influences are. And while he's completely grateful for what Poison was and what 80s was, his personal vision was a little more gritty and a little more southern. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah.
And so if you ever see our version of the band, while we stay really, really true to the Poison songs, they're a little heavier and swing just a little bit more different. There's a touch of Skinner and Aerosmith to those songs that aren't the way Poison performs them.
Yeah, because I noticed over years he's covered a couple of Poison songs. I think probably the one he's covered the most, maybe Every Rose, but each time he does it, it's kind of a different version.
Right, every time.
Yeah.
On the one record, Jamming with Friends, that I was fortunate to produce, we actually have Loretta Lynn sings on it, and Hugh McDonald from John Bon Jovi plays bass on it, and Joe Perry plays some of the guitar on it.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's cool. And then Eric Brimham's still playing in the band, right?
Actually, during COVID, he took a leave of absence.
Okay.
It's temporary, and he's welcome to come back when he's ready.
I see.
But as of right now, he's not performing with us.
And so, what's next for you guys? Because I know he's getting ready to go on that stadium tour, right?
He is. Everyone calls it a summer tour, but it doesn't start till July.
Interesting.
But that's what's coming right around the corner 2 months from now, and I think the first date's July 2nd or 3rd in Atlanta.
Well, it's like 3 years in the making, and the thing I think maybe why people think it's a summer show is, I mean, that's pretty much been the Poison standard. I mean, Poison's one of the bands that can get away with going out like maybe 3 or 4 months, every year, and they make bank. And there are some Poison solo dates that aren't connected to the stadium package that they're going to be out doing, and I think that there's 20 solo dates already on the calendar through the summer too, because Def Leppard likes to take a week off. Okay. Every tour they book, they take a week off right in the center of it, and the tour is so big that I think it moves 2 nights on and 1 night off, and so Bret's filled the calendar. We have a bunch of solo dates right through the summer, right through all of that. And so, like, I know, it's no secret people don't buy CDs and that like they used to, but has Bret stated any desire for you guys to record like any new music or tracks, in the near future? Actually, just last week, Bret was here at my studio. Me and him were working on a couple new tracks. Oh, that's cool. He texted me. I fly to Cabo San Lucas tomorrow because we're performing at a big country music festival, actually at the Hard Rock in Cabo, with Lee Brice and Sarah Evans and Locash. Oh, wow. And he texted me today that we need to finish the song as soon as we get back from Cabo. So me and Bret together are
constantly and forever working on new music. It never stops.
Oh, that's cool to hear as a fan, because I as much as I love the hits, I still love my favorite bands, or artists, releasing new music, because to me that's what always keeps a band. I mean, even a band like Def Leppard that's on the stadium tour, they're getting ready to release a new studio album, and so like I know a lot of bands aren't doing that, but I dig the fact that they're one band that continues to put out new music.
They continue, and "Kick" is a great song.
Oh,
I loved it when I heard it. And the second single, I've only heard half of it, but I thought the second single sounds really, really respectfully like Pyromania. That's like
in a lot of
ways.
Yeah, and also kind of sounded like something that would have been on maybe even like High and Dry, or the first two albums. It's kind of interesting. Anybody that's a Def Leppard fan, you look at those first two albums. They were almost a full-blown metal band. I mean, and then they kind of turned pop on Pyromania. But you know what? I love it all.
Yeah, those Def Leppard songs. There's nothing like it, and they created a certain sound.
Yeah.
A lot of bands start out super heavy and end up pop. I mean, Cinderella, the Night Songs record was a metal record for the most part, and then by the second record, they were a blues rock band. It's funny how the morph changed. When you're young and you're writing music, you have a little more angst, and then you have your first record becomes a hit, and I'm not going to say you mellow out a lot, but a little of the anger goes away.
Yeah, but what's interesting is like Cinderella is one of my all-time favorite bands, Pete, and they only had like 4 albums in their career, but you know what? With those 4 albums, I still love listening to that music all these years later. They made a real statement with those 4 albums.
When I was a kid, I saw Cinderella open up for Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
And then I saw them open up for David Lee Roth on the Eat 'Em and Smile tour, and they blew me away. They were, at that point, they were the best live band I'd ever seen. They were just perfect. They played perfect every single night. And, me and Eric have gotten to be such good friends, and we do an acoustic band called This, That, and the Other.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And we do a handful of Cinderella songs, and I know this sounds silly, but the fact that Eric is cool with letting me sing those songs is just such an honor.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
That he, we sit down and rehearse them, and I do them different than Tom. They're acoustic versions, but those songs are so special. And I remember thinking Eric's going to say, "Let's just not do these," and he loves it when we do it live, and it's an honor to think that he's letting me step into Tom's shoes for that moment.
Yeah, this is just me as a huge fan of that music. I think it would be so cool that if you guys like put out an acoustic CD of that stuff. I mean, that's just me. But like you're right. When I think of Cinderella, I think of the whole band was just great. But Tom Keeper. I mean, to me. He was ultimate frontman. He was like a triple threat. Great singer, songwriter. He played the guitar like he was a lead guitar player. The way he threw that guitar around, he was amazing what he did. And he could play piano.
There's a handful of those guys that are singers, songwriters, and lead guitar players. There's Tom Kiefer and Michael Sweet from Stryper is very much that. And my favorite of all time is Sammy Hagar, obviously. Yeah. But, there's a handful of those full package guys that are incredible. And
Tom Keither, again, the thing that I dig about Tom, I never met the man. I had the opportunity to interview him once. Super friendly guy, but like he does not have the ego. He could have probably carried on as Cinderella, but from what I understand, he decided to break the band up because Jeff LaBar was having a drinking problem or whatever, and he kind of predicted what ended up happening, and he didn't want to be in the band and see his bandmate die on the road or something. And so I think it's just cool.
That's really close to the truth.
Yeah.
Cinderella never technically broke up.
Yeah.
They were just waiting for Jeff to get it together.
Yeah. And it's just sad if it ended that way, but yeah.
What everybody close to them would eventually like to see is Jeff's son Sebastian step in and then give at least one more run under the name Cinderella.
Yeah, again, that's kind of what they did with the Eagles when Glenn Frey died. Until recently, his son had replaced him in the Eagles.
I I had no idea about that. That's weird that I didn't know that, but that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I guess he had been touring with them for the last 3-4 years, and he decided he wanted to leave and do his own thing. And I guess he did it out of respect for his dad, obviously. And I heard like they did put out a live album from the LA Forum with him, and it was pretty good. I mean, he sounded almost dead on like his dad, and because Hanley was originally going to break up the band after Glenn Frey died, but then they got his son who sounded so much like him. It's just wow.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm gonna have to check some of that out.
In fact,
I'm glad to hear his voice was similar, because Glenn and Don both have such unique voices. I love Don Henley. In that acoustic band I'm telling you about, I do End of the Innocence and Boys of Summer, because I love Don's voice so much.
Yeah, and it's so amazing, a singing drummer. I mean, yeah, they have those out there. Peter Criss, Roger Taylor, but they're far in between.
And Phil Collins.
Phil Collins. In fact, Phil Collins, I mean, again, we're supposed to be rock guys, Pete, but, he rocked with the best of them. I mean, Genesis, he's a great solo artist, songwriter, but interesting about Phil Collins, a lot of people don't think of him as a drummer. He started out as a drummer before he was ever a singer, and he spent his whole life drumming so much that, from what I understand, his hands are so damaged he can't even play the drums anymore.
Right. Well, wasn't he in a wheelchair for that last Genesis tour a few months ago?
From what I understand, you're right about that, and that's pretty much why he was kind of forced to retire, But
yeah, funny that people don't think of him as a drummer, though. But he is responsible for the single most famous drum lick in all rock and roll history, if you ask me. When you think about what's that? I can feel it coming in the air. That's
There Tonight. There Tonight. Yeah, that's the name of the song.
Yeah.
But you're so right, and you mentioned while I'm not a diehard Duran Duran fan, I have appreciation for a band like that too, because they've been around so long. I mean, I love some of that classic stuff, like the Reflex, Hungry Like the Wolf. I mean, those videos from back in the day, and I mean, it's amazing. They're finally getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Don't even get me started with that. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, amazingly, Judas Priest finally got in like they deserve. But Dolly Parton even tried to take herself out of running. She said, "I'm not a rock band. Some of these other bands, they deserve to be in, and we don't care if you want in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Dolly. You're getting in anyways."
But Dolly's stance on that was the single most coolest thing I think any artist has ever done. I thought that was classy what she did, as far as trying to reject herself from it.
I think so too. I said, and I got appreciation for what Dolly does too, but I love her even more because she did that.
Yeah, and thank God for Judas Priest getting in. If they wouldn't have got in one more year, I think Eddie Trunk might have gone postal.
Oh yeah, you're right. And don't even get me started. Like another band that got in a few years ago, I think, when both Iron Maiden and Judas Priest were up, was what's this? The band Bang a Gong, Get It On. Some British band. I forget the name of the band, but they got in.
I know the name of the band, and I can't think of it to save my life. It's one of Def Leppard's biggest influences, T-Rex.
T-Rex, that's it. And they do have good songs, but I'm thinking how they could get in before Priest or Maiden. I mean, no offense, but come on. Or even Thin Lizzy didn't get on.
Right.
Yeah.
Def Leppard's new album, the title Diamond Star Halo, is lyric from T-Rex.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, wow.
It's a lyric in Bang a Gong. She's got a Diamond Star Halo.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Well, Pete, it was and I just got to tell you too, the cool thing that we got to let people know about checking out your video, like you said, I dug the fact too that while you would deserve to get any income from this, but I dig the fact that you said no, because it's about the war. I want all the money that this video raises to go to some charity for the war, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, there was nothing about. I wasn't trying to monetize this for myself at all. It was simply a therapeutic for me, and to help spread the word that those people need help. Like I think you kind of hit it at the beginning about all the news channels love to scare us.
Yeah.
But this is real. This isn't propaganda. People are dying over there. You can't. When it's a quote straight out of Putin's mouth about nuclear weapons, it doesn't matter which news channel you're watching and how they spin it. They're spinning it because it's sad, and they are using fear. I understand they're trying to scare us. I understand the ratings, but it's not like they're making it up. This is really happening. You can't deny it.
Yeah, but the only thing that kind of gets me, not to get too political, but I'm kind of glad we are. As great as it is that everybody's unifying behind, Ukraine at the same time, I do think that a little late getting to the game. Okay, they're finally sending the weapons over there after war's been going on for almost 2 months.
Right.
And then the other thing is, I do think unfortunately we have a president that comes across as looking very weak. He gets up there and we've sanctioned Russia, but you know what? All the sanctions don't seem to be doing anything to stop it. If anything, it's just Putin's doing worse. And part of it is everybody's so scared. The president of the United States is afraid to do anything. Oh, we don't want to piss him off. We don't want to make him mad. He's mad.
This is not a pro-Biden, anti-Biden statement, and it's certainly not a pro-Trump statement. I'm not. But what I'm saying is, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
And it's one of my biggest problems with our leadership a lot lately. On both sides of the coin, is more and more we just look like clowns to the rest of the world, and I hate it.
I even see they have other foreign leaders going to Ukraine, and our president isn't even thinking about, they send the Speaker of the House, big deal. If like Boris Johnson, the head of in Europe, England can go, and Prime Minister from England or whatever he is can go over there. I don't see why our president can't. And I think if it was maybe other people in the president's office, maybe they would. And again, this isn't a slag at the president. It's just that I think sometimes we got real weak leadership here.
He should have been there by now. And the sanctions are jokes. It's jokes. It doesn't.
The final thing I'll say on this, the biggest joke of all is I feel in a way the United States, we got oil here, but we can't use all our oil. We still got to buy oil from Russia. That in a sense is funding the war. So you're putting sanctions against him, but they don't seem to be doing anything.
Right, exactly. I'm with you 100%.
Well, Pete, I really enjoyed chatting up with you. As you can see, we got a lot in common. We're practically the same age. We're in a lot of the same music. So the interview we just did, anybody that's a Kiss fan, I'm with you. And Kiss is another one of those bands that I pretty much, I love the classic stuff. That's kind of the best stuff, but I love it all, if you know what I mean. I'm a fan of every era.
I to this day, when I went to see them before COVID and they did Crazy Nights, it was my favorite part of the night, just to know that they did it. And I loved Revenge. I loved the Revenge record tremendously.
Yeah.
There was a couple moments in Psycho Circus. I didn't love the Psycho Circus record. And what was after Sonic Boom?
Monster.
I think Monster was great. Monster was one where they went back and really kind of had that retro sound, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, the only thing I could never figure out, where we kind of ended it with, Eric Singer and Bruce, Revenge was such a great album. Why not go and do another album with Bob Ezrin? But, I think that was almost like Destroyer, too.
Right. No, I get it. The team of Ezrin and them is classic. It's like Leopard and Mutt Lange. Why mess with that? Keep going with it.
Yeah, Bob Ezrin, I'm sure he produced all those classic Alice Cooper records, and he's still working with Alice up to this day, and I just love everything he's done with Alice Cooper, and you may not even realize he's also the same guy that produced The Wall by Pink Floyd.
I did know that. I'm a record producer myself. I actually am more passionate about producing records than I am playing the guitar most of the time. So I am as much as I like Kiss and Van Halen and Bon Jovi, I like Bob Rock and Bob Ezrin and Eddie Kramer and and Mutt Lange. I'm a fan of his producers as much as I am music. Oh yeah, no doubt. And the thing, if you listen to Ezrin, the thing he's known for is little tiny sound effects. That's very much all throughout The Wall. Destroyer, for example, it was his idea to put the little news report of the car accident in there. If he didn't have that, that'd be a totally different song. Right. No, there's all kinds of hidden Gems and Destroyer when it comes to little sound effects and different things happening throughout that album.
And I'm sure the Kiss fan, you probably maybe even got the Kiss box set and heard the original version of God of Thunder with Paul Stanley doing the vocals.
Paul singing, yep, I've heard it.
And of course, you may or may not know the story, but of course, Paul wrote the song. It was originally his song, but it was Ezrin that kind of said, no, that's a Gene song. And it's kind of interesting because we listen to that song, we think of it as a Gene Simmons song. It's kind of his persona, what he's become.
Right. Absolutely. But when the song, the original recording of the song, even though Gene sings the verses, Paul's voice is still dominant in the chorus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And but when I was a kid, as I grew up now, I know there's Paul and Gene songs, but when I was a kid, I didn't feel that way. It was just Kiss.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, on a lot of early albums, you can hear their voices kind of mesh. Even one of my favorite things, if you go on the very first Kiss album, they added the song "Kissin' Time," and that's that has Gene, Peter, and Paul all singing on it, or they kind of trade lead vocals. That's some of my favorite stuff where they trade off on the lead vocals. They really did that, like on Destroyer. They got back to it on Revenge, and that's why I loved Revenge so much.
Yeah, I love that they did it on Shout It Out Loud. That was one of the coolest parts about Shout It Out Loud to me.
Yeah.
Was the back and forth vocal on that. And then, like on Hotter Than Hell, the chorus to Hotter Than Hell, Gene and Paul's voice together is the magic of that chorus, if you ask me.
Yeah, and then you mentioned being an Ace Frehley fan and being a Kiss fan. How could you not? But I for years didn't even realize, because again, I'm listening with my ears. I'm thinking Gene Simmons sings Parasite. That must be a Gene song. And then you find out, no, wait a minute. Ace wrote that song. He wrote Strange Ways. I guess in the early days, he wasn't confident singer, and he had Gene and Peter sing most of his stuff. But I used to think it was kind of trippy. Gene doesn't drink beer or anything, but yet he's the one that sung Cold Gin.
Sing Cold Gin. Me and Bret crack up about that sometimes. We talking about how Paul and Gene have always been sober, but one of the most famous Kiss live moments is Paul, going, I know you like the case of tequila.
Yeah.
Maybe vodka and orange juice.
Yeah.
Cold gin. And it's like, and you don't even drink, so what are you talking about?
Just kind of that attitude you're supposed to have, being a rocker. But, and there, a couple of years ago when Ace put out his album Origins, there's a cool cover. He finally did his own version of Cold Gin with his vocal, and he kills it on that.
So, I don't know if you know this or not, but on the Bret Michaels Jamming with Friends record, Ace Frehley, we did a remake of Nothing But a Good Time. Bret remade some of the Poison songs the way we do them in the solo band, and Ace Frehley played lead guitar on our remake of Nothing But a Good Time.
And was he actually in the studio when you guys were cutting it, or?
I went to Ace's house myself, just me and Ace, and I flew with my mobile Pro Tools rig, and me and him spent the day in his room just working on the song. Man,
as a Kiss fan, Pete, I bet, that's quite a story to have,
The story is much greater, and I could go on.
But
on that particular song, Michael Anthony plays bass on it too. So my two all-time favorite bands of all time are Kiss and Van Halen, and the fact that me and Bret and Ace and Michael are on one song together is blew my mind.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Pete, I've enjoyed talking to you, but I know it's getting late where you are, so we're going to get ready to wrap it. Before I do, though, you mentioned a couple times being a Van Halen fan, and very much like Kiss, I kind of love it all, but I was curious, do you have a preference as far as the Dave or the Sammy stuff, or do you kind of love it all too?
I often say this: Van Hagar is my favorite band of all time. Van Halen is my second favorite band of all time.
That's kind of interesting because I have another friend that, and again, sometimes it depends on your age, where he first got into Van Halen when 5150 came out. So he's telling me that's my Van Halen, but you know what? Then I went and listened to David Lee Roth stuff. And I like that too, but because of my age, that's when I first got into Van Halen.
Right. Well, so my mother put a guitar in my hand at 5 years old.
Wow.
And that's how I found Kiss. But I was already so into it by 5th and 6th grade that I was playing Van Halen stuff in in sixth grade when 1984 came out. I have a video somewhere of me playing Eruption in sixth grade, and I was playing Panama and Hot for Teacher and all that stuff. I just grew up with it, and I loved it. But when 5150 came out, it was perfect to me.
Oh,
and
wow.
I love Sammy's voice, and I love Sammy's attitude, and I just love that era of Van Halen from beginning to end.
And I'm sure, being a Sammy fan, I'm sure you've heard that 1973 Montrose album.
Of course, I was fortunate enough to be on that Sammy show, the Rock and Roll Road Show. When he came to Bret's house, and you could, at the end of it, you watch me and Bret and him are playing Mama Don't Dance together while we're riding around on one of Bret's go-karts out in the desert, and we've played Sammy a whole bunch of times, and I've been fortunate enough to get up on stage and play with him in the circle for a handful of songs, and he's the coolest guy in the world.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'll say about Poison. They've done a lot of great covers over years, and I'm sure somebody played Bret Michaels. You know this. I mean, a lot of people don't even realize that Your Mama Don't Dance, that's not a Poison song. They covered it, but I went back and I listened to the original version, and the original version is cool for what it is, but I really think Poison kind of owned that song and made it their own. Very much like Tesla did with Signs.
Very much. I remember finding out Mama Don't Dance was a cover, but what you're listening to is a Poison song. It is a Poison song. The original version, like you said, it is what it is, but there's no energy to it. It's nothing like Poison did.
Like I remember the first time I heard that song on the radio and I saw the video on MTV. I just love, he really does own it. As far as Bret, the way he sings the song, I love the way he kind of, just puts his whole energy into it.
100%. He does it every night, no matter what he does.
Well, again, Pete, I'm going to let you go because I know it's getting late where you are. But you know what? The interview we just did, I'm going to post it on my site probably about a week or two. I'll let you know once I have a concrete date. I'll let Dave know as well. Feel free to post on any of your sites. But if you enjoyed this as much as I did, let's keep in touch. And anytime you have anything to promote, let's please do it again.
That'd be great. You've got my phone number. Text me.
Okay.
Or anytime, and I had a great time. I'd love to come back as soon as you'll have me.
Okay, then, once we interview folks like you and we have a good time with them, we love to say you're part of a Chaotic Riffs family. So we will do it again. I'll keep in touch with you, my friend.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Chaotic Riffs Magazine.